Hello everyone and welcome back to Doodly Doo. It is your host Matt again after a bit of a hiatus. This one took quite a long time for me to get out because I was hella depressed. But today we are going to be doing a style change video. I'm going to be attempting to alter my quote-unquote anime style, which is almost non-existent, to one that I picked out that I really liked. I like the style and everything. So this episode is going to be me doing Rokka and the Six Flowers. I really liked it. Some of the characters had very unique styles. The story was pretty cool. And it was one of the ones that was so different from what I'm used to doing. So I'm going to take my original character, Selena. She's supposed to be like a magic girl, kind of, and she belongs to a manga story that I'm technically writing for a long time in the background. And I'm going to do this video and a couple others of me transforming my style, and then we'll see how I draw her at the end, what elements I keep, and everything like that. Alright, now that I've rambled enough, I'm going to go ahead and start the playback, and I will commentate over top of it to try and explain to you what I am doing, thinking, blah blah blah. Alright, so I have my little inspiration board up, and you can see I will flash back and forth to it. I already took measurements, like head lengths and stuff, and you'll see I flip back and forth quite a bit. Now, there's me kind of measuring things out. And that's a good thing to do. You start studying anatomy and proportions, you'll start to really rely on head lengths, although over time it'll start to feel a little more natural. But in this instance, I'm trying to copy someone's style or, imitate it best I can. So I really had to lean back on that. But yes, I would say that most of the style for a female character is represented kind of from the waist up, if you will, because then you get the shapes they're using. Usually the face is the most different thing about them, how they draw the eyes, the eyebrows, what shapes they're using. So for me, that was the thing, but I want to copy the whole thing, so it took me a lot to find pictures that were not fan art that I could use to try and imitate her a little bit. So you can see me kind of fighting with the shoulder neck area. I was not having a good time, and I hadn't done a warm-up when I started this one, so it's just gonna be a lot of me struggling with basic things like drawing lines. I also want to make sure I got, her where her hips started, which is typically between, like, right after the ribs on a quote-unquote standard drawing, but hers start kind of at the very, just a little below her ribs, so she creates that inverted parabola. And that line I drew, that arc, is where her elbows can be in comparison to the rest of her body. I did also have to take that from theirs because anime, manga, whatever, it likes to really play with proportions a lot, and you might see that a little bit in some of the future episodes. I also didn't know if I wanted to keep her pose or use the pose I used for my original. So I ended up kind of doing a halfway in between. Yes, the struggle with the eyes. Alright, you'll see marks on the inspiration board. I already took the time to trace the shapes, which, for getting a feel for, I don't think is shameful at all, because you're not used to that. So go ahead, and if you trace, you kind of get your muscles used to what that's doing. It's not a brilliant way to learn drawing as a whole, but for copying a style, if you're really struggling with shapes, like you can see I am, it's not I don't think it's a big deal. This also really got me out of my comfort zone in terms of eyes, eyelash shape, eyebrow shape. I really don't draw them out to fill in later. if that makes sense. I don't do outline. I kind of just use a thick black pen and then I just draw it in how I want it. So trying to mimic the shapes they're using for the eyelashes really messed me up in my head. And I can't remember if I end up going with it or not, but they actually render in some shots the under eyebrow, and that was the tricky part, because if it's too chunky, it just looks like they have crap dripping out of their eyeballs. But if you just do it slightly, it looked like you just made mistakes or gave her wrinkles around her eyes. So yeah, it's just a lot of struggle. Thank God for digital art, right? Because I can just move stuff around when it doesn't look right. That's one of the things that's hard for me to get back into doing traditional art, is that you can only erase so long before the paper just starts giving out. And I am a notoriously sloppy drawer. Like, you can see me go over stuff so many times. If this was real paper, it would just be in shreds right now, and I'd have to start over, and at that point I would probably just not do it. I have a real problem with starting completely over. Yeah, there's the under eyelashes that I was really struggling with. Yeah, I got more detail in her eyelashes because they look really cool when they do it. When I tried it, it was a bit of a struggle. I must have just left and gone somewhere during that time. I also realized that I had ovaled her eyes too much, and I'll fight with that here for a little bit longer. I needed to make them more circular, and yeah, there's a handful of things that are just very different from this style from other styles I'm used to. Because she also has that kind of half lid thing going on where her eyes aren't wide open like a super like cute anime girl. So that was also the thing, is like, how much of their work do I want to include and how much of her actual personality do I want to work in? So the compromise I came to is, for now I'm going to mimic their style completely, and then for the final drawing at the end of these little challenges, when I keep in what I want to keep in, I will fully tailor them to Selena's personality and style and stuff like that. Another fun fact, I never get anything right on the first try. So one of these days I want to do a no erase challenge, or no transform, no backspace, whatever, because I think that'd be fun, well, quote unquote fun, for me to try and do that, since that is the antithesis of how I do things. Yeah, half of this is me just watching it with you guys, because there's the original. I popped on screen for a second. I did this 2 or 3 weeks ago, and because I've been utterly depressed and not really doing anything, I have not been working on Doodly. So I'm trying to remember what's happening, because I don't even remember what the end result looks like as of the time of this recording. So it's going to be a blind reveal for me too. And here's the other thing I was talking about in another video, where I go to another layer and I use a different color for hair and accessories and stuff like that, because it allows me to differentiate from the blue construction lines underneath. And also I can, delete, or I can erase things without worrying about destroying my other layers. There's some really cool elements to her hair that I wanted to incorporate, and I really tried. So hers, in the illustrations, they kind of make her like her locks that come out like paper thin, so they do these weird twisty things, and they're very cool. I was having a super hard time with it and like realizing how to incorporate it, because Selena has the undershave, so her hair doesn't have a lot of like volume. It just kind of comes down. So to try and mimic that with her hair, it all looked really goofy, and it just didn't work. So I had to kind of do a half measure somewhere between her hair and how I normally do hair. Yeah, and I'm gonna struggle with that for just like a while longer. I don't know exactly how long, but you'll probably get bored of watching it. Oh, okay, I stopped apparently. And now we're moving on to the clothing part, which again, another color, another layer, and I wanted to imitate like how there's lots of just edges to her clothing. Nothing's really flowy, anything that is supposed to flow on her is kind of straighter and more rigid. So I also wanted to take some of that and put that into Selena's style. And yes, I covered up some more of her cleavage. Some people will be mad, some people will be glad. I don't have a preference. I made her a little crop top thingy, a little like form fitting on her ribs. I think that turns out in the end pretty cool if I remember right. Yes, I did keep the short skirt. Yes, the belts. Oh. It's hard making those make sense because they're strictly there for fashion accessory type thing. They in no way help hold up her skirt. That's all thanks to her hips. Yes, hands. I do think I took a break in recording. When I started her hands, I said, nope, not tonight, not doing it. And then I started another session where I came in and the hands started making more sense to me. Sometimes it's good to just walk away for a little bit. Because you can get so inside of your head and just get really hung up on one thing. And for me, that was her hands. And all the reference photos I had on my little inspiration board didn't have a lot of hand work to them. And they're just this stereotypical slender anime hand. Oh, I guess I died for a little bit here. And we're back. Yeah, there's something about anime hands where they give girls like the tiniest hands. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that. They look like toddler hands on a teenage or adult body. It's very bizarre. Oh yeah, I was trying to pick out the size of the brush because I wanted to really bring in that anime style. I don't know if you've noticed this, a lot of their exterior lines, especially the colored pieces, are very thin. So I went with like a 4, which would be really hell to do physically. Unless you're very skilled with a G pen, which I'm not skilled, but I did do some drawings of that. Maybe I should make some videos of me doing that. That might be fun. For you guys, I'd be terrified the whole time that I was screwing it up. inking is probably the funnest part for me. It's like when you really see something start coming together. And I know I'm abnormal in the amount of time I use. I'm in the sketching phase because I essentially get it all the way down to where I just have to trace it. It doesn't make sense for my brain if I don't. And I don't know if that makes me a bad artist or what. Now, some of you will notice that I zoom in and out a lot during the inking phase, and that's just to make sure that things don't look more blobby. I want my lines to read as really crisp, so I zoom out and make sure that all of them are, for lack of a better term, legible, like they all make sense. And that's why I zoom in and out. I zoom in so I can make them precise, and then I zoom out to make sure that they make sense. And it's exhausting, but I think it lends to a decent product at the end, if I can call anything I do decent. Honestly, the feet legs were the simplest things to do because she just has big old calf-high boots, and they don't have any patterns or anything on them, so I was very thankful for that decision in the design phase right about now. And I also do all my inking on one layer, which is wildly counterintuitive from what I do from the sketching layer. But I guess I am just a maniac. I don't know. I really don't. So then I go in, I add little details, and then I'll hand erase tapers into my lines so that they look nice and pointed. Oh, I also decided to give her a different pattern on her skirt mostly because I didn't want to do the checkered schoolgirl thing. That is honestly very exhausting to do, and I wouldn't call it cheating, but I went ahead and brought the original image into this layer so that I can just use the picker tool to make sure that her colors all match. And at this point in the flats portion, I really thought I had still made a giant mistake. I was, up to this point, I was still very upset. I remember that. I remember being very mad because it wasn't looking the way I thought it was going to, and I didn't think it changed too much from her original image. But once I get to the shading and everything, and I start messing with the colors and tints and highlights, is when I start to really like what I did. Yes, I gave her modesty leggings. Just because it seemed like a little excessive, and it's kind of more fashionable right now to be wearing leggings underneath something like that. I don't know if I'd call them like pantyhose, but they're definitely leggings or something. I completely abandoned once I got to color, I abandoned the theming, and I just went to blocking out shading how I do it, which is by creating a multiply layer on top and just using the base color for that. You can see me refer back to it, but I don't really take what they did for shading very seriously. But I did do some more extensive shading than I normally do. Normally I'm very light on shading because I'm scared to cover up too much of it or to really screw up the lighting. But I really just went for it on this one, and I'm happy. I remember being happy with how it came out. I guess I'll This will also be like a live reaction to how it turned out for you guys. I believe it's the small things, like just the small shading, the small highlights, stuff like that really can make a difference. And also with shading, you're visually like pulling or pushing things into the background. So you're really changing what people focus on. Like everything you shade kind of doesn't draw the eye, but everything that remains lit or gets highlights gets the attention first. So especially when you go to the belts, how I made that little shadow on each side of it, and then initially the vision, it was going to go towards the belt as a whole. It just makes it pop. I'm a little sad that I didn't actually get to show her undercut in this image, but it's just the way her hair laid that it didn't make a lot of sense. She had a lot just coming over. Oh yeah, I definitely don't normally do this with eyes. I don't do this much detailing. I have a normal shadow, an edge shadow, and I'm creating little patterns with some smudging. Got those BAM highlights on the belt. We're shading and highlighting. Yeah. With something like leggings or tights, it's important to get like the highlight in, just to let people know that it's like stretched over skin, if that's the effect you want. Oh, yeah, it didn't turn out too bad. Some things I would have changed, looking back on it now, but all in all, I think I did an okay job. I won't point out the flaws, not this time. That'll be another video. I need more content. I have some more lined up that I'm going to do. I won't list them all off here, so they kind of come as a surprise, but yeah, look forward to those. They'll be a little bit slower coming because they take a little bit more time, and sometimes you gotta start over. But I will be putting out more content, providing my mental health stays, okay, and I can keep myself drawing finally. But thank you guys for tuning in. Feel free to let me know what you think in the comments. Tweet at me, Instagram at me, I don't know. And thank you for watching. Bye.